Get ready for real talk that challenges and inspires. Subscribe to Real Talk with Christopher Lewis on YouTube now. Captivating interviews, compelling stories, and meaningful content await. Don't miss out. Subscribe now. Be part of our vibrant community. Hit that subscribe button. Stay informed with new episodes. Subscribe and be inspired. Real Talk with Christopher Lewis. Subscribe now and let's make a difference together.
Pardon the technical glitches, but we have a little studio technical shortage here, so we're trying to manipulate everything as best as we can. But welcome back to Real Talk with Christopher Lewis, my special guest, who is also a returning visitor, Mr. Ermath Harrington, the Managing Director of Harrington Consulting. Welcome again, Ermath.
Thank you, Chris. Good to be here again. It means that something obviously went well in the first session.
Well, coming out of that very first session, which dealt with corporate governance issues in the credit union sector, we wanted to be a little more forward-thinking in this session, and that came from feedback that we undertook in the first session. People wanted to hear more, so I said, if you're hearing more, let's not talk so much about problems, but let's talk about growth. What is the engine of growth for that sector? It has so much potential, but it has never really fulfilled that potential over the years. So what do we need to do differently? So in the discussions, I know I spoke about we might discuss a model for the credit union sector, and at the same time you said, well, Harrington Consulting was working on such a model, and following those discussions, that's the basis of the topic today. So over to you.
Okay, well, thank you once again, Chris. It's a pleasure to be back here to share some insights and perspectives on the credit union sector, and really taking the conversation now into the realm of vision and growth-mindedness, and understanding the critical role that the credit union sector can play as an economic constituency in Trinidad and Tobago. I want to start with an anchor point. The good book says where there is no vision, the people perish.
Correct.
And in my observations of this sector, what I glean is that, first of all, there are a lot of people who are in the credit union sector, but don't really even understand the epistemology of the sector, the cooperative principles, what it's about. Yes, it started off as thrift and savings and, the opportunity for what's called the poor man. And
Yes.
It's a term that I really don't like, because most times when you ask persons to describe what the credit union is about or what the sector is about, they try to talk about, well, it's for the small man and it's for the poor man, is a small thing, and not understanding that by proffering that, by verbalizing or vocalizing that, you're giving power to the word to keep people poor and small.
Correct.
So if we
You're
talking
limiting your vision.
That's right. So if we want to talk about growth, you're already pulling up a handbrake on your mindset by thinking small. Because if you think small, you will act small.
Correct.
And your greatest achievements within the realm of that thinking space will really not add or bring any value to yourself as a member, to the credit union as an institution, and to the sector as an economic demographic in the country.
Yes.
So I think the starting point, as with most things that I pontificate on, is really the mindset.
Yes.
So the first thing we need to remove is the small-minded mindset, the rat race mindset, the crab in a barrel mindset. I never thought I would have amounted to anything, but look at me, I'm now a director in a credit union.
Yes.
But outside of you taking your oath and subscribing to the corporated principles, you're still clueless as to what your role is supposed to be.
Yes.
Whether it be at the board level, the management level, employee level, or even as a member joining a credit union. Because most persons say, well, you know, you join a credit union, I want to get a loan, I get a loan and a GT. And then you take another loan, and then you take another loan, and you take another loan. And I think I had asked the question in our very first session, and the jury is still out of that. Certainly no one has come back to me with it, to identify a person who has become a millionaire or extremely materially comfortable, resource endowed out of the credit union. Yet this is an entity or sector that sits on about $19 billion in assets. So, you know, the question of growth begets a question of where do we start mindset-wise? And, you know, in dealing and engaging with credit unions, by way of observation, you know, I would have put together what I believe or what I call what can be a potential growth model for the sector, for credit unions, for members, for that economic demographic that we talk about.
Yes, so we'll be putting up this slide with the model shortly, but before we do so, let me just continue a little bit on that question of mindset. Because your model is fantastic, it covers the main points, I think, but if the mindset is not there in all the elements of the model, it will not succeed to the extent that we would like it to. So how do we go about changing that credit union, poor man, now a rich type of mindset to one that is productive, to where we recognize we have assets that could generate more assets, that we have members who we could elevate and lift up? How do we change the mindset?
Well, the current trajectory of the credit union sector, based on how it's going, we actually get to a point where it's going to hit home in a rather mentally violent way. And what do I mean by that? If we look at, you know, the whole issue of succession and the future of the movement, which is tied into growth.
Yes.
Because growth is a future-oriented concept.
Yes.
So if we look at from a succession perspective in the sector, who are we attracting? Are we attracting the young ones? The persons, the young professionals between 21 and let's say 39. I have observed personally at several AGMs either, you know, or young persons airing their views either at the mics or amongst the chatter of the audience about where are the products designed for the new young professionals.
Yes.
Are we sufficiently inside the minds of the young people in terms of what they want, what they're looking for? Are the current financial products, the loan products, you know, the financing products, are they structured and really catered to contemporary times out there? To what extent, yes, you have education committees in various credit unions, but are these education committees edifying? You know, are they lighting bulbs of thinking in the minds of the membership? Are they opening a portal, a visionary portal for people to look at and look up and look through and say, hey, I can move from here to there? Do the people understand wealth? Do they understand money? Do they understand debt? Or is it just join a credit union, bring your shares, your DSR is 40, 42%, you could get 2-to-1 or 1-to-1, your GT with a loan, and then what makes it even more tragic as part of the edification, you go on and you borrow money to go and invest in liabilities.
Yes.
Yeah. And how do you change the thinking to say, you know, you borrow money to invest, or the credit union is configured as a channel to have collective investment schemes, etc.
So let me give a 10 seconds to set up. Okay, we're doing it all one-man operation today. So we have audience, we have the one slide that we'll be discussing right through for this session. What should an empowered credit union sector poised for growth look like? So this is your slide, Ermath. So could you just give us an overview, and eventually we'll drill down to each part, each segment of the slide.
Sure.
Okay.
So if we want to talk about growth, which is
Yes.
what we're talking, and having an empowered credit union, and by extension, an empowered credit union sector, we have to understand the major components of the sector, which really comprises your membership, the credit union, the institution itself, the organization itself, and then the sector as a collective.
Yes.
Now, understanding these three components, starting with the membership, is supposed to inform a certain kind of continuum, a certain type of escalation. It would follow, therefore, logically that, as I said earlier, if the membership are thinking small, then the credit union will be small-minded collectively.
Yes.
And then the sector will also be small-minded and would not be able to attract the level of respect that it is entitled to.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of potential within the sector for so many things that would form part and parcel of the pillars of growth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As he said, edification, wealth, knowledge, creating avenues for wealth, investment mindsets, return. They start thinking more in terms of returns of investments rather than just borrowing for liability's sake. So, in each of these, let's call it verticals or components, just briefly, we can touch on some of what those features in each of those components should resemble or look like.
So let's start with the membership.
Sure. So the membership. And, I like to table things in question form because I believe that in table it in question form rather than statement form, it elicits a greater degree of probity and response from, the listener or the viewer, as the case might be. So the first question on the membership is really, how financially literate are the members?
Yes.
Do members understand really how loans are structured, what DSR means, what in addition to your other liabilities, you're now onboarding a new liability, whether it be you have a bank loan and then you come to the credit union, or you have a credit union and then you go to the bank loan.
Yes.
So how financially literate are the membership, throughout the various credit unions? Secondly,
do they understand, for example, that a car is not an asset?
That's right.
Unless you're generating revenue from that car.
That's right. So the question is, we're talking about monetization of assets and or liabilities.
Yes.
And to what extent can you leapfrog it? Now, we've entered the era where so many young persons are electing to go the entrepreneurial route.
Yes.
The business route.
Correct.
The old, conservative thinking of you go to school and you have to do O-levels and A-levels, and you have to go to university, then you have to do the first degree, second degree, third degree, fourth degree, and all the various degrees, and then all the side diplomas, etc. And you end up with a whole plethora of qualifications, but you have absolutely zero capability.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing with that, Chris?
What?
Is that the persons with all the qualifications end up working for the persons with no qualifications. Isn't it supposed to be the other way around? I mean, let's put it on the table.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years ago, I did the arithmetic on doubles.
Yes.
So you would find that persons, because their narrative has been influenced by societal norms and mores and value systems that, okay, you go to school and you get all these qualifications and you go into the corporate world and you move up the corporate ladder and you get the corporate office. But along with that comes all of the, the optics that you have to now afford because they are liabilities.
Yes.
Because you have to drive the right car, you have to live in the right neighborhood.
Yes.
Your children have to go to the right schools, private that is, and all of that. And we look down at the doubles man, who is, when you look at his liquidity and his rates of return, etc., he's in a far better financial position than you, Mr. MBA or Madam PhD, or, but we don't see it like that. So who's really better off? I think I remember I was looking at a video with Steve Harvey, and he was explaining there was a university in the United States that had approached him to be sort of like a brand ambassador, to motivate young people to go back to school and learn and be educated, etc. So, okay, he said, yeah, no problem. He's all for motivating young people, etc. Until they told him, well, it will look good if you signed up or if you enrolled as a student. He said, well, why?
Yeah.
And she gives him the narrative about education. Now, mind you, it's not that education is not important, but she gives him the narrative of education and the optics and how to look and all of that. And he made a statement that out of in that entire interview, it stuck with me. He says to the lady, he said, you tell me which song's better and what I'm about to say. I am broke versus I is rich. He was making a parallel between the properness of speaking and the level of education. So he said, which one would you rather? And that's
objectively.
That's right.
I is rich sounds better.
That's right. So,
But as you mentioned, that in terms of my own career, I have the traditional route: go to university, go to business college abroad, and come back and go up the same corporate ladder you spoke about. But that journey started in 1979 in university and 1984 in Kellogg. Now I would not do the same thing because now there's the internet. And people have to realize the world has changed. In business school, I was using floppy disks. Now you have artificial intelligence in the background, this sort of thing. And the opportunities that you have, as you said, to be entrepreneurial without going through that typical route. You didn't have it in my time when I was going to school because that was the only route for people who may not have had a gold spoon in their mouth to really get ahead.
That's right.
You had to study, you had to go to school, you had to get a government job or private sector job that pays well, and that's how you really moved up the ladder.
Look forward to a pension.
Now you could be on TikTok or whatever, and
but
doing some entrepreneurs.
In fact, certain what would we call it, job positions or career positions are now evolved. Now you apparently, I don't know, I am told by my children that influencer is to be okay. Where you want to be? I want to be an influencer. Right. That seems to be a job, the position now, or a YouTuber, or even a gamer.
You got an income. That's
exactly.
I may not do it for your whole life, but it's a respectable alternative that you could consider.
That's right.
Which was not available 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Correct. So you have at the membership level, you have the young generation who is into that contemporary space, who are asking these kinds of questions, who are seeking these kinds of opportunities in terms of technology and entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And then, you have the leaders in the credit unions who are still stuck in that long time vein.
Dinosaur
kind of, relic thinking. Another area in terms of the membership is the extent to which they are investment and wealth minded.
Yes.
So you find that. Well, it's really essentially between liability minded and asset growth minded.
Yes.
So we've been programmed that, you know, you go to the bank, you go to the credit union, you take out a loan, which is important. I mean, credit is there. Nobody, you know, not everybody can purchase things cash. But we have to also understand that there may exist within us or within our ability to access assets or, you know, skills that we can monetize. Several times, you know, persons have come to me with respect to business advice or they're seeking financing, and they walk in the door thinking, well, you know, unless they get some sort of, you know, fairy godmother or uncle to give them money or help them in the business venture that they can. And when we sit with them and we start to go through, okay, this is where you are, these are your current liabilities, your assets. You know, do you understand the principle of equity in your home mortgage?
Yeah.
And how that could be leveraged? Do you understand, okay, are you just John Doe, public servant, go to work 8 to 4? Or are you John or Jane Doe who have a skill? You could bake, you could cook, you could draw, you could fix something.
Yes.
To what extent have you done your own internal personal scan to see to what extent you have other assets within your realm that you can monetize?
Yes.
And therefore make yourself or present yourself as a higher value individual enabled in order for you to now attract certain streams, etc. And it's all about timing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about, if you're going the investment minded route, it's not about investing in what is happening now, but you have to invest in what is to come. So it's like a sniper would tell you at 800 yards, when he lines you up in his crosshairs, he's not aiming to fire where you are. He's aiming to fire where you are going to be, which at
he's coming in charge of the event and everything.
Aiming 3 feet ahead of where your direction walking to intercept you.
Yes.
You know, and so again, we said growth is future minded. So we have to start thinking about, you know, that growth. Where can you see your skills? And coming out of COVID, has certainly opened, if not before, that portal of entrepreneurship. I mean, the registry, the company's registry online portal, as I understand, crashed in December last year because of the sheer volume of applications to register companies.
Yes.
Now, a proper thinking or intelligence-driven credit union, but that's something you need to now draw on. So, okay, these people are going to open businesses. They'll probably need small loans. They'll need business loans or certain facilities. To what extent can we position ourselves to be able to finance and drive those dreams?
But even before that, to what extent could we help our membership go through that process of company registration?
So the enabling services,
exactly.
Because I can tell you, it's a nightmare. The technology has been updated where they've departed from the manual aspect of, with respect to business registration and corporation services. They've added several new dimensions to that application process, put it on a digital platform, but it's now more nightmarish.
Yes.
You know, but there, and you make a good point there, Chris. To what extent can we enable? So it's not just come in, apply for a loan, go by credit committee approve it, you get the loan, your GT as we say, and you go. But how can we talking about business, enable people to think in a business mindset, show people, you know, marketing strategies, let people understand first and foremost the statutory obligations, because a lot of people that go into business and they like the allure and they like the song, I have a business and I'm selling this and they're making the money, but they neglect the statutory side of it. And understanding the implications of neglecting the statutory side of it vis-a-vis your national insurance or revenue, depending on your liquidity or your cash flows levels, you know, value-added tax, you know, and maintaining your annual returns. I mean, a client came to us the other day He had a company he had set up a couple of years, well, not a couple, more than a couple, and he wanted to bring it back on stream, and he thought it was just, well, okay, abracadabra, you're going to pay $40. When we did the calculation, the penalties, it was costing $61,200.
That's it, close it down and say,
And that's what we told him, but you see, a lot of people don't know this.
yeah,
So if you don't know the tools, the mechanisms, etc., so you have to understand the mindset, growth mindset.
yes,
You have to understand the enablers.
yes,
You have to understand, okay, the arena that you want to go in. So you need to do some self-introspection. And I'm saying that has to be colored overall when we talk about mindset by a big thinking mindset. And I come back to what I said earlier about this. Well, I'm just a small man, China a small thing, and I just, I'm a poor man, and I could. Once you do that and you start eliciting those words, then you are self-victimizing yourself. So don't now come and say the system don't like poor people, black people, red people, brown people, what have you, because you are contributing to the systemic narrative by proclaiming your own victimhood. Why you must, if you're a nuts vendor,
yes,
your thinking must be, listen, I run Nuts Incorporated Limited. I'm listed on Wall Street. My nuts are the number 1 or number 2 grain category in the world, and I operate it. That's the kind of mindset, because you can't grow from thing, kind of thing,
Yeah.
So it's about the mindset, and then creating a sustainable demographic. That's the real challenge from a membership level for credit unions. The time is ticking down in terms of a sustainable demographic, meaning who is going to carry on, who is going to be 20 years from now. What or who is the membership demographic of a credit union going to look like, if there will be one?
Well, it has to be younger than what it is now. That's my starting point, my starting comment.
So, as we said in the first session, if you are not onboarding persons under the age, let's use 35 years as a baseline age, and you are not onboarding to a significant degree new members from a succession perspective, and to keep the demographic at least numerically strong going, or even bigger going, if we're talking about growth.
Yes.
Then by the time a 35-year-old who's observing the trend becomes 55, and they look back, there's nobody. They become that 55-year-old in 20 years' time could be a baby member, age relative in a credit union, because there's nobody behind them.
But the point I would want to make is not just attracting the younger membership, but is retaining them and adding value to their lives while they're there. They must feel welcome.
That's right.
You can't attract the youths, the 17-year-olds, the 20-something-year-olds, and it's almost like an addendum to the real power base, which is over 50 or over 60.
That's right.
They must feel that they're part of an organization that they're contributing to.
Correct.
So those things must be in place.
That's right. And then when we lead in now from the membership into the credit union, and just feeling from that point over young people, and I've said this to credit unions, you have to make the thing sexy.
Yes.
To the young people.
Correct.
Young people, they bore very easily.
Mm-hmm.
They bore. They need to be constantly engaged. They keep it short, 15 words or less, give it to me electronic form, digital.
It's a different audience.
I don't have time to come and fill out a 3-4 page document. I don't come into office and write, do you have an app? These are the sorts of things that have to provoke.
You're not lining up in 7:15 in the morning.
That's right.
It's fake credit union talk, not 8 o'clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
I just want to remind the audience, we have the questions. If you have any questions, 379-9994, to just type them into WhatsApp, and we'll get the questions and we will raise them in the conversation as you go along.
I'm looking forward to the questions. I remember, and in particular, and I'm going to put it back out there to the viewership and the listenership. I want somebody to call in or send a question or text, identifying, they don't have to call the person by name, that they are aware of someone who has become wealthy or multimillionaire solely on the basis of their membership in a credit union.
Right.
Yeah. So we move on to the other pillar, I think.
Yes, the credit union.
So we dovetail into that from the membership.
Yes.
About the youth and that sustainable demographic. So then the fundamental question for credit union now is, are your products relevant?
Mm-hmm.
Are they outdated? Do they suit the current demands or interests of that demographic? I mean, you're churning over the same, let's call it road march loans over and over and over and over to the same old persons, which in and of itself is constituting risk, because in a lot of credit unions, you have bad debt meeting delinquency, meeting new loans. And then we want to know, well, why the income levels of the credit union is going down, because you're basically not managing your bad debt, your delinquency, and your risks, most importantly, in terms of who you're onboarding and what type of loan products you're giving to them.
Yes.
So fundamentally for the credit union, the starting point is, our products relevant? We can sit as a board or as a management team or employees of a credit union and beat our chests and say, we believe in this product, whatever the product might be. This is a winner. This is how we feel. But how does the potential member or active member feel, or person you want to attract into the credit union? How do they? That's what matters, How you feel about in the context of sales and the context of giving loans, and how you feel about your loan product is really not as relevant as to how the people we are targeting feel about the product.
Exactly.
To what extent the credit unions are creating an investment and wealth channel. So why credit unions cannot be like brokers into mutual funds? Why they can't be channels into REITs, which is REIT, which is real estate investment trusts and things like that. Why they can't collectively purchase government bonds? Well, I guess some of them may do that.
Yeah.
Some of them, they invest, yes, we know this. But how can I channel a credit union member to say, over and above the typical credit union product, that I can offer you these investment products by establishing partnerships with, other intermediaries and brokerage houses, etc., could make that happen? Why I can't be a member of a credit union and have shares held in US currency? Why?
We have one question in which we've addressed in some way, but we could go into more detail. In what way can we make credit unions attractive for the youth?
The first
some of it I think you have in mind.
The first aspect of that is, and it might sound simple or to some simplistic, has anybody actually sat down with young people and asked them what they want? Or are we assuming that we know what the young people want? Because you see, empiricism or empirical data is critical, and we gotta stop guessing. So the old people trying to understand and guess what they think the young people want. And nobody sits down and says, hey, let's have a forum with you. Let's bring in the people, you have focus groups, you have focus sessions, what have you. And let's sit down with them and hear. Walk me through what you all need. What's your level of thinking? How do you all see or perceive certain things?
Yes.
And it starts there. And a lot of times, and I'm glad that question came, because it shines light on another issue that, generally, but in the context of this particular conversation. Sometimes when we want to do something, we want to grow, we want to build something, we want to develop something, and we start thinking about it, we start to overthink the thing instead of breaking it down. So let's take the youth in terms of the question. How do we get the youth to want to come over? So then we start to think all kind of highfalutin models and, varied levels of difficulty, these analytical tools and all of that, which are important. But I always say, always start simple. So if I want to attract a youth member to a credit union, my first port of call would be to have a conversation with the young person or young persons and get into their headspace to try and delineate what they want. And we practice that, in the firm. When a client comes to us, for example, they want a business plan prepared. So you can sit and, they will share their views, share their vision, how they want the business to look, what type of business it is, etc., etc. And yes, you could take notes and get certain things. But what we always say to them is, when we elect to write a business plan for a client, we write a business plan. We attempt to get into your mind and write the business plan through your eyes, because that brings a greater degree of validity and value to the exercise. And therefore, when we produce it, the business plan, you are comfortable with it because you can say, yes, this is what I'm trying to see, as opposed to we just assume, okay, you come in and based on maybe how you look, he or she either don't know this, or they probably will know this. So you start making assumptions, and then the assumptions don't manifest. So you start to get frustrated. You say, but how will thing, because you didn't take the time to follow the simple steps. So really, in circling back to the question, it starts there. Ask a question or questions.
Simple approach and often neglected from my experience.
That's right. Ask a question.
You can't assume, and especially if you have a gap that you're not this demographic which you need for growth is missing from your mix, your element. You cannot just assume, okay, we do this for them, we do that for them, we have this, we have the other, we have this function, we have this forum. That may not be what they want.
Exactly.
So I think that's the basic principle of what we're saying.
Correct.
To what extent do credit unions engage the people they're trying to attract to come into the credit union?
And through the right channels.
Yes.
Yep. And then we come, my favorite part.
What's that?
Or I should say my non-favorite part, strategic leadership.
Or lack of it.
Sometimes the mischievous side of me, in engaging with credit unions, I'm often tempted to run a quiz and ask them to spell strategic and tell me what you understand by the word strategic. Tell me what you understand by the word leadership. Because you see, for a lot of them, leadership is get the management work or get on the board.
Yes.
I'm a director, and for those who are at a lower level of acumen, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, they get on the board, the B-O-R-D. Yeah? No, let's face it.
Yeah.
Yeah? I'm choosing my words carefully. Yeah?
Okay.
Those at a lower level of acumen. Now, whereas you may be at a lower level of acumen, you must be willing and open to develop yourself to that higher level of acumen. So you come into the position on the board, B-O-R-D, and there's a director, D-I-R-E-C-T-H, carrying fiduciary responsibilities. They probably can't spell that. In an entity that's sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars of people's money. And somehow that misses people. Where's the strategic leadership that informs that? Where's the strategic leadership that informs know-how to knowledge? I wrote an article of that some time ago in the newspaper. Where's the capacity? Where's the value add? Are you coming onto a board to serve or to serve yourself? Is it about the walk-you trips? Is it about the CCCU trips? Is it about all the other side trips? Is it about the per diem, the honorariums? What is it about?
And so part of the problem, and to resolve that issue of strategic leadership, you have to go back to the first pillar about the membership.
There you go.
To what level do you have raised your expectations of the people you elect to the positions of authority?
That's right.
Or is it, well, my friend gets in position and you're happy with that, and once I get a good dividend at the end of the year, after 365 days, you're happy with that. But what happens between day 1 and 365 is not your business.
Right. And you see, even further to that, and we had touched upon this, what you're seeing in terms of the nexus between the membership of credit unions and those who come forth from the membership to occupy positions of strategic leadership, it's the same thing you see in the wider society.
Correct.
So we want to know, why do we have corrupt politicians?
So where guess what? From?
Where politicians come from? The same society, the same fabric. So that's why if we just jump back to membership and we talk about, mindset.
Yes.
So if you don't have a growth-driven, big thinking mindset, and you're elected to serve, or even you're promoted in the organization at the operational levels, then guess what? You're not going to suddenly transform into a strategic thinking guru. You're going to bring with you the toxins,
yes,
and the inabilities and the inadequate levels of acumen to fill the positions in those leadership positions in the organization.
And to use another example relevant to the topic you raised about assets and having a growth mindset, I was dealing with, I don't want to call the company's name, but you'll figure out who it is because they're in transportation of people. And I was telling them in a strategic planning environment that your assets are not your buildings and your transportation equipment and all this sort of thing. Your asset is the number of people who are using your services every day. Because when you have hundreds of thousands of people using your services every day, think of what that could be done with that captive audience who passing through your facilities. So the facilities are just a means and end. But really, your value is the 100,000 people who passing through every day.
Exactly.
And the credit unions need to recognize that for themselves as well. It's the same thing. Your asset is not how many branches you have or how much investment you make in fancy equipment and this kind of thing. Your real asset is the 600,000 people who come into you for certain services, who you know where they live, you know how old they are, you know how much children they have, you know whether they're married or not. You know everything about them. Think of what you can do to market to them or to add value to their lives, to move them from point A to point B. And I think if they recognize that, there's the growth.
Correct. And you see, as you talk about that, in terms of understanding those customers as true assets.
Yes.
It brings me to the distinction between what's known as red ocean and blue ocean strategy.
Yes.
So right now you have a financial services sector that is essentially a red ocean. What is a red ocean? A red ocean is where you have multiple providers of services all swimming in the same pond, all competing for the same persons, all competing for the same wallet spend. Blue ocean strategy is through innovation, identify either within that pond or creating a new pond and upselling or creating innovative verticals that can now distinguish you from what the masses of the other companies are doing. And so if we look at credit unions that are swimming in a red ocean of other credit unions, I mean, after all, there are 100 and something of them. So they are their own red ocean. And then within the larger red ocean, you have the banks and other insurance companies, well, the general financial services sector. To what extent can credit, and this is where the strategic leadership acumen comes, to what extent can credit unions create their own blue oceans? But that requires a thinking that's beyond, well, this is just for the small man and the poor man and whatever. And if that's your lens, then you can't perceive blue ocean strategy. You can't even spell blue ocean strategy in the context of red ocean strategies. So But here's the challenge as well with strategic leadership. Excuse me. So there have been some that have come and have attempted to, the leaders in credit union sector, have attempted to demonstrate and push the strategic leadership and show and demonstrate certain things. And for a brief moment, we say, maybe we have a glimmer of hope in this person. Maybe it might be a Chris Lewis, it might be John Doe, Harry Smith, Mary Paul, whoever. And we say, all right, listen to this guy. What he's saying making sense. He's purposeful, he's driven, he's trying to show us where he can take us onto a growth path. But guess what? Your smarts, your qualifications, your experience, your expertise, once you arrive at that sweet level, they become irrelevant. The only thing that is relevant and matters at that level, and this is a news flash to viewers and listenerships, especially those who either aspire into leadership in credit unions or are already in positions of leadership in credit unions. Now, the only thing that matters there and impacts on your ability to make that value add impact is the intersection of the agendas. If your agenda, as progressive, as bright, as acumen-minded, as much as that might be so, if that clashes with an agenda that is backward thinking or suppressive or just totally doesn't understand where you're coming from, 9 times out of 10, you will lose that battle as a professional. And you are either forced to acquiesce and just, if you can't beat them, join them kind of mantra, or if you have the compunction and faith and confidence, you will gracefully exit the organization.
And looking at the time, because the conversation is going so well, what if we could go through some of the other points in terms of the credit union, and then we will end with the sector. So maybe a little over an hour.
So let's talk about governance. That's the new buzzword: governance, compliance, risk. Governance, compliance, risk. But if you don't understand governance beyond, we have a board and we have committees and we have policies and we have procedures. Okay, fine. Give me the evidence of your practice. To what extent are you circumventing the same policies and procedures that you have? To what extent do you understand the policies and procedures we have? To what extent are you aware of the policies and procedures that you have that inform behavior in the context of an ecosystem?
Well, I think, frankly, is even more fundamental than following a policy.
That's right.
Do you know what the right thing is?
That's right.
What it looks like? What is appropriate and inappropriate? And if you grow up in an environment where no one tells you this is right, this is wrong, and I mean right and wrong could change over time, but if you follow your gut, you will know, okay, I'm not supposed to steal a mango from the vendor.
Right.
You're supposed to ask the price and pay for it. That's what I'm talking about. The simple basics like that. If you don't have that understanding of what is fun, right, as opposed to what I can get away with, the GT as you call it. If you can distinguish between those two, I don't care what policy is in place.
Yeah, and it really boils down to, something I've said, I've penned as a quote. It's impossible to lie to yourself in the dark.
Yeah.
So the question is to what extent, character and integrity is really manifested truly and conscientiously in the dark. When nobody's looking, will you do the right thing?
And the thing with governance, it affects growth, because if I'm a youth person or someone who's not a member, thinking of joining this credit union, I see it in the news or see it in the papers, it's nice building and everything, nice people working there, but I have governance concerns. That could kill everything.
That's right.
And people need to understand that.
And then you remember, we live in a world now where increasingly the demand for fairness and equity and justice and all of, which are sort of like, elements of the whole governance thing, is much more pronounced.
Yes.
So you find what could have gotten away with, do as I say and not as I do, and I want, just I could do it and get away with it, but you can't do it. But that those things no longer apply.
Yeah.
you know.
Because people's money you're talking about. Now you mentioned change ready. What do you mean?
Okay, so as you know, the only constant in life is change.
Yes.
So credit unions in Trinidad and Tobago, at least in my view, some are still in 1971, the Cooperative Societies Act of 71. Some are probably still in the 80s. Some kind of come into the 2000s, yes, but you know, comes back to what we said about the changing contemporary times. You have to be able to create or run the organization on an agile footing that ensures as things change. So, for example, 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, nobody was talking about sustainability and ESG. Now that's very much, the narrative.
Yeah.
And I've always maintained that credit unions are, by virtue of their philosophy and design, are probably the best suited organizations to push sustainability and ESG because they have a direct.
Explain to the audience what ESG is.
Sure. So that is ESG stands for environment, social, and governance. And it's really
Yes.
a mechanism that's designed that allows for organizations in pursuing a program designed along those three, the environment, social, and governance, to contribute to and support the whole concept of sustainability, which is really putting in place things now to ensure that there's a better future for the next demographic or the next series of generations.
Yes.
We talk about strategic value adding partnerships. To what extent are credit unions partnering either with each other, with third party entities, etc. Again, to attract and create, higher levels of value to the member.
Yes.
Right. So for example, you have credit card companies that have points. You have, insurance companies where you have the card, you can go and get your discount, or you flash your card and, the insurance takes and you only pay a percentage of it. To what extent, things like that can credit unions can partner. Data is a big thing now.
Yes.
How are they getting together and partnering to manage data as a sector? Quality loan portfolio management. How what's the quality of your loan portfolio? Are you seeing it in terms of a qualitative perspective, or you're just looking at the figures and just saying, well, okay, we book in X amount of loans, but the types of loans you're booking not really bringing value. Digitalization of services. I mean, we're speaking right there up the contemporary line of young people.
Correct.
People, in fact, come in to think about it. I can't tell you the last time I've seen a young person actually written anything, beyond 2 pages.
Yes.
Yeah. The worst case scenario, they probably, just tell me where to sign and I sign, or they could go on a device and sign as well. Low operating your cost models, again, which will come from how you amalgamate or explore key partnerships and develop those partnerships to to the benefit of providing as efficient and effective a low cost operating model as possible. Your online presence, and online presence here is not SMS. Let's get that out of the way.
Yes.
Nobody reads it, well, at least me, and I consider myself young at heart. Not necessarily young, but young at heart. Nobody reads SMS.
Yes.
Facebook, if you're young people are not on Facebook.
Yes.
They are on other the more developed digital channels, right? So you have to understand, and it comes back to what you said earlier. If you understand who your assets are in terms of customers, members, then you have to engage them through the channels where they are.
Yes, you have to reach them with
That's right. So if I want to do a survey, for example, on preferred choice of beer on a weekend trying to Tobago, I'm going to the Avenue to do the survey on a Friday evening.
So that's where the beer drinkers.
That's right. I'm not going to go to an Italian restaurant, some high-end Italian restaurant somewhere and do a survey to find. So so we have to engage at the appropriate channels. Effective member engagement. Again, are we just going through? All right, so the education committee has this year, come and learn to bake bread, come and learn to crochet, come and learn Microsoft Word, come and learn, you think, but what is the quality of the engagement? Because to me, if you engage, if an entity is engaging with a demographic, it has to be a two-way conversation.
Yes.
So I have to get feedback from you that signals to me that you're interested.
Yes.
So when I come and I teach you, no, nothing wrong with teaching to make bread. No?
Mm-hmm.
So I teach you to make bread. I expect at the end of the session, you must come to me and whisper, listen, I like this bread making, and I'm thinking of, opening a small bit. Could you have facility in place where I can borrow money to set up my little oven and what?
Yeah.
That's how I know you've been effectively engaged.
Yes.
Where I just do the thing and everybody understand, yes. You all learned anything today? Yes. And then you go. Then where's your regression analysis to test the level of engagement?
Yes.
And then we have outreach strategy. Who are you outreaching to? And not only that, and outreach is not just the credit union, it's not outreach to its members. It's outreach to other stakeholders in society.
Yes.
Because you want to signal to other stakeholders and say that you're serious, you're here, you can also help assist in these things. It's all about your positioning, because that's a part of demonstrating growth.
Yes.
And then finally, under credit union, data-driven decision-making rather than guesstimation decision-making.
Yes.
And assumptions that are not empirically based.
Yes.
And which leads us now to make poor decision-making.
Yes.
And then we get in the realm of, so why are we not growing? Why are we not performing? Why are we not producing? And those sorts of things.
Right. Very good. And the last section, about 4 minutes.
Which is the sector.
Yeah, but we have enough time to run it.
And I mean, so essentially in that final pillar, which is the sector, you want to know that as a sector, the credit unions are a strong collective body represented by a, sorry?
I said the wrong time there, 4 minutes to 7.
4 minutes to 7.
Yeah.
So that you have a strong umbrella body that ensures that the collective perspectives and views in terms of the direction growth of the sector are in unison.
Yes.
You don't want retardation of progress. You don't want people saying things like, well, that is not for credit union, that is for banks. And not on missing the point that it's about elevating your game. It's not about staying in a safe zone, because if you stay in the safe zone, you can't grow.
Yeah.
And
if you don't grow, you die.
That's right. It's about having unified credit union stakeholders, but you can't have unified credit union stakeholders at the sector level if at the board levels you have disunity.
Yes.
And then if at the membership levels you have disunity, because we would have seen in recent times and even years gone by that some AGMs almost get to the point of all-out brawls.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a symptom.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be, I think the most prolific part of this sector is that you want to represent and position yourself as a strong economic constituency. What does that mean? It simply means that you must understand the power of the strength and size of your membership, 668,000 Trinidad and Tobago, the power and size of the asset base that you sit on, about $19 billion. And you must be able to harness and maneuver that in such a way that says, hey, we are a unified force and you need to listen to us.
Yes.
And our views and our viewpoints must be taken into account.
Yes.
Right? And, if you really push us, then, we may have to even look at ways and means where we would be able to demonstrate that, because it's all about demonstration of power.
Yes.
And once you can effectively demonstrate that power, then, your things tend to go more in your direction. Shared services, credit union bank, we spoke about that before. Data storage, offsite storage, coming together with that, banking networks, integration with links, point of sale systems, and a whole host of other shared services that can be added into the sector ecosystem. Again, all designed to bring greater and higher levels of value to the membership. Yeah. And effective regulation. Well, guess what? If you have effective regulation, the word effective there implies that, the issues, it's a living, breathing thing. It's not you sit and you wait for things to happen. The regulator who enforces the regulations has to be proactive, has to be able to sit and look at the the signals and the symptoms. So it's like a lifeguard. The lifeguard doesn't wait to see that the water starts to get rough or the riptide is thing, then to tell the people, well, come out of there. The lifeguard will come, he will scan the ocean and he will put the flags down.
Yes.
To delineate, okay, he is seeing and he's forecasting. These are the areas where you can swim, these are the areas where you're not allowed to swim. And he's regulating, therefore, where persons enter the water to frolic and have a good time.
Yes.
At the beach. So it's the same principle.
Yes.
Not sit back and wait until some major issue
everything to collapse.
And it collapses. So in summary, the three components and some of the elements under those components that will contribute to having a growth-driven and empowered credit union sector in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, I think that one thing we do, thank you again, Ermath, for this contribution.
You're most welcome.
One thing we do recognize and agree on is that the credit union sector has the potential for growth. It has 600,000 plus members. It has the opportunity, it can leverage that membership to carry it to 700 to 800,000. It needs new leadership or informed leadership in order to make that advancement. And the leadership comes from the membership. So it also needs that informed membership to understand what is my potential, what can I become. That is something for. Think, right. As I tell some friends of mine, stop thinking poor, think rich. Don't think about where you are and what your circumstances are and build a box around yourself. Think of where do I want to be?
That's right.
And what do I need to do to achieve where I want to be? So that mindset needs to change. If you want to grow, if you want to reach the youth, you have to talk to them. It's not about sitting down in a boardroom and coming up with a whole slew of youth-oriented programs, right, which may be of no interest to the youth themselves. So you need to engage those members that you want to attract to your credit unions where they are. So if you want to engage on social media, you go to the social media that the youth are using to engage them, not the ones that you're familiar with. That may not be the appropriate channels they use in that circumstance.
That's right.
And of course, surrounding all of that, the credit union and the informed membership, you must have a strong sector in terms of the governance of the sector, the umbrella body. The credit union movement must be a voice in the society, a powerful voice that people respect and people hear and that people understand. And of course, the regulators have their role to play, and it's not an after-effect role, it's a proactive role, that you do the right thing in anticipation of what may or may not occur, and your job is to keep an even keel so that your ship sails smoothly.
That's right.
So I don't know how I summarize it.
Yes, excellent one.
So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. Again.
Okay, you're welcome. So this is the end of our show. Again, you have a one-man operation here this evening. So I will bring the broadcast end, and I thank you for being part of it. Thank you.